Uh,
All right, well, here we are with my pal, Gene Mack. And hello, Gene.
how do you do, sir?
I'm great. Looking good over there.
Thank you.
So the point of this conversation is just to really hear the Gene Mack story as it relates to your real estate investing career.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly as well, to really be authentic about what the real estate investor life is like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Gene, I'd love to really just ask you some questions and hear you elaborate a little bit about your story, the journey that has taken you to here. But first, before all that, kind of tell us the Gene Mack 30,000 foot. Who are you? What's your family like, and what do you do?
Yeah, I think I'm in my fourth year of HomeVestors in our Raleigh, Durham market. I lived here for most of my life. I spent a stint in the Caribbean, spent a stint in New York. I've got 5 kids, age 9 and under, living the dream. I was in Christian ministry, Christian not-for-profit operations management side of things for 10 years before going into real estate full-time. Did a little bit of part-time real estate, had a couple of rentals before I jumped into this. And it's going well. Here I am today, trying to build the business.
And so where do you live?
We live in Durham. And
you've lived there since you've been back in Durham?
Since I've been back in Durham, actually, I bought this house that I'm sitting in right now when I was 22, 23, right after I graduated from college, with a vision that one day, Lord willing, I get to raise my family in this house because it backs up to a playground and surrounded by parks. So here I am.
That's awesome. And now I think your
39.
Your mother-in-law lives behind you. That's amazing.
Yep.
Built-in babysitters.
Yeah, we've got my mother is on that side and my mother-in-law is on that side. And some of our best friends are on the other side of the park. They searched for about a year, 2 years to find a house that would be adjacent to us, and other friends, another couple skips that way. So that's really special.
Everybody wants to be around the Macks.
Well, we're glad to be an axis, you know.
Yeah.
Build stability, build something beautiful.
Yeah.
And people join in. So
that's awesome. Really good stuff. So tell me a little bit about how you heard about HomeVestors.
Yeah.
Where were you at the time? What was that part of your life like?
Sure. Well, you know the story. We were living in New York. Felt like it was time to transition out of that not-for-profit ministry career. Definitely wanted to do real estate. You and I go way back, of course. And I'd heard through the grapevine that you had signed up for this HomeVestors thing. I think I chatted with you about it, but I just didn't want to do a franchise at that point. Call it pride, call it naivety, whatever. I was like, I want to open like my own sandwich shop, not a Subway franchise. Like I want to build my own business here. Did that for about 2 years. Flipped a house or two, converted a couple of houses into rentals, got my real estate license, was doing property management, a little bit of stuff. But after about 2 years of just trying to do it all on my own with some moderate degree of success, I was paying my bills. I think I sat down with you and you were really transparent with me, which I appreciated. And whereas I'm trying to scrape together like a couple of deals a year, and I'm like knocking on doors, sending my own mailers, working the MLS, building relationships, going to all these RIA meetings. You humbly but transparently showed me the numbers that you were doing. And I walked out of that lunch thinking, Ron's results are a lot better. I know he's smarter than me. He's older. He's better looking. He's all these things, but also fundamentally, Ron bought a system. I think I probably knew more in some ways. Like I knew more about the residential real estate industry than you probably did when we started. But you had just been able to accelerate and scale so much faster than I had. And then you connected me with a couple other franchisees, and they were gracious enough to let me sit down with them, kind of look under the hood, and everybody was just doing great, working hard. Like, obviously it wasn't like a passive cash flow machine. They're working, but I was working too, and you were getting much better results than I was, because of the system that you bought into. So
what was it about the I want to do it my own way, I want to have my own thing, I don't want a Subway franchise? What was it about that, you think, if you dug deeper into that? What was behind that?
It's probably just what I don't know. I just didn't have a grid for a franchise. And I also, part of it was I thought that would just really constrict me. Like, I wouldn't be able to be creative at all. I'd just be writing a check to buy a piece of a business that somebody else had built. I don't know if that makes sense. And I'd always had this entrepreneurial dream of, like, I want to build a business, right? Buying a franchise to me kind of felt like buying a stock, I guess. Like, it just wasn't going to scratch that entrepreneurial itch. But what I've seen is the franchise provides a piece, and a really big piece. And particularly for me, it let me buy something that I wasn't really interested in building for myself. I have no aspirations of being a marketing expert, right? Like, just doesn't scratch any itch. But it was, without that, I'm not getting any deal. I'm not getting any leads. I'm not getting any deals. I was spending so much time trying to build a business that I wasn't interested in building. And I realized, hey, I can buy this piece via the franchise and then build on the pieces that I'm interested in. It's not constraining. It's empowering.
I kind of resonate with that, because I likened it to, I was the opposite. So I did not like the cowboy real estate investor kind of guys that I had worked with in my hotel career.
Mm-hmm.
I was buying some houses as rentals and things, and I just never liked them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first had the thought that I might want to be a real estate investor after I sold my interest in that company, I thought, no, I don't want to be one of those guys, because it just came across as cowboys, no accountability, no framework, no system. And then when I ran across HomeVestors, I was like, oh, there's some tracks to ride on here.
Right.
Like, they've done this for 25 years. And the other thing that attracted me, but this is not an interview on me, was I didn't want to work alone. I just didn't want to be that guy kind of in my office by myself, never, going to RIA meetings, but everybody's so closed up. And so tell me what it was like for you for that 2 years or so, compared and contrasting that with what it's been for these last, say, 4 years with HomeVestors. What's the difference between the two experiences, besides deal flow and making more money?
Yeah, I resonate with what you said. There's such a vast network of resources and organizations and books and podcasts and for the real estate investing space. But I do feel like a lot of it has that get rich quick, Gnostic, secret knowledge, buy your way in, type feel. I never really enjoyed, but I didn't know another way around it. And so I'd say coming into HomeVestors, we see each other, and I really enjoy those moments, but basically we're still grinding out our 9 to 5 by ourselves, right? But there is a real sense of collaboration, which I think is just a testimony to individual people's values, but it's also a little bit of a genius in the way the system is set up, because every time I explain to people how we collaborate, no one's ever heard of it before. They're like, huh, that's really interesting that we advertise collectively. And then so all of our dollars are benefiting each other, but it's fair. So, like, every man stands or woman stands or falls on their own effort, their own conversion, their own hustle. But there's also a real degree to where you win, I win, we win together. And then just access to the data, I think, is fascinating. It's a little bit of a collaborative competition, right? We come together once a month, and it's like, okay, Ron's whooping me on this. Somebody else is crushing me on this area. I can see the data all around, and one that gives me confidence to spend the big dollars that we have to spend on advertising, because I can see this big data pool. I'm not just throwing it out there into the unknown.
Right.
But then two, I can go, all right, well, if Ron was able to produce that much in sales last year, Ron, what are you doing that I'm not? Right? Like, and I enjoy that. And it doesn't hurt you to share that information with me. And we can be pushing each other on. And I really enjoy that.
That's excellent. So, besides everything you've shared already, was there anything that surprised you when you got involved in HomeVestors over the last 4 years that like, I didn't expect it to be like this, good or bad? Where you said, hey, you know, when I came into this, I didn't expect, for instance, for me, I didn't think I would like or enjoy the buying experience. I thought I was going to hire a buyer very quickly. And what I discovered was I loved the buying experience. I loved the interaction with a different person, figuring out what's behind those doors, being invited into a kind of a sacred space in someone's home, hearing their story. I loved that part. And I thought before I bought the franchise that I'd be like, no, I'm not going to like that part. Is anything like that for you?
I'm gonna give you a couple of negatives in a row.
Please,
Not because it's been a negative experience for me, but I came in with very high expectations, and those expectations have been met. But what stands out to me, you said, well, what was different than I expected? What comes to mind are all negatives, because all the positives I expected were there and have been even better. I would say the technology framework I thought would be more robust, and it probably has come a long way in the last few years. But to start out with, I had to build a lot more systems than I thought I would. And so I basically, I took the marketing piece of it, and I was very grateful for that. And then I still am, but I came up with my own kind of follow-up systems, a few other pieces, right, that really weren't handed to me. I don't know anybody promised they would be, but I just thought there'd be more robust stuff.
Well, that's what's so cool about the franchising business is that you can look back over the course and the history of franchisees. And for instance, it was a McDonald's franchisee, not the company, who came up with the drive-through experience. So the ability to innovate within a framework is there, because you don't have to worry about how much mail am I sending out this month, or where am I sending it, or whatever. You get to kind of innovate, especially given your personality. You are an innovator, you're a systems guy, you're a process guy. So you can kind of really dig in on that part of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Anything else like that?
I've enjoyed the conventions and just all the collaborative stuff more than I thought I would. They've really been rich. Like, I've really enjoyed that. Like, I look forward to going to conventions. When I first heard, we're going to charge you if you don't show up to convention, I was like, but I get it. I mean, you need to have those. If I was in leadership, I'd say the same thing. But I go every year, twice a year. Like, I basically take advantage of everything that's available, and it's been really rich, and I've really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to develop as many friendships as I have in this. I didn't come into the system looking for that, because my life is full. Like, I'm already very rich relationally, but it's been really a solid group of people. I've been continually impressed. There's some people that have not impressed me, obviously, but as a whole, I've been continually impressed with the caliber of people that are doing this business, and that's been really, really fun.
So in your particular instance, you sort of, after a couple, 3 years, you sort of developed a relationship with another franchisee here, and you guys decided to do some level of a combination, combining forces, say. And so tell listeners what drew you to that wanting to do that, and how has that worked out for you?
It's worked out really well. It's had its challenges like any other relationship, but good tensions. I had a leader used to say, these are tensions to be managed, not problems to be resolved, right? We're different people with different strengths, and that's you got to embrace that tension, right? For me, I wanted to go into it because I'm relatively ascendant and young in my career path. I want to build a much bigger business, Lord willing. I could easily provide for my family just doing a HomeVestors business where I do 10, 12 properties a year, whatever. I don't have to build a team, keep it simple. But I've had ambitions of, getting into new construction, doing really heavy rehabs, building a big rental portfolio, other kind of stuff like that. And as I was growing, I found myself the thing that I was enjoying the least was having to switch hats mid-gear, right? So like if I'm in building a scope for a project, I'm in a crawl space and I get a buy call, and I'm just like, like I can be a good project manager and I can be a good buyer and I can be all these different things, but it's really no fun slamming on the brakes, having to shift gears and never know when that's going to come in. So the other franchisee and we basically came together. We were values aligned, but pragmatically speaking, we just wanted to wear less hats. So he handles all the buy calls, makes all the offers, handles all the dispositions on the back end of it, gives me his thoughts, right? Like how did he underwrite it? What was he thinking? And I handle all of our rehabs and our rentals. And we're just able to concentrate better is what that comes down to.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's been a very organic process too, right? I mean, you guys you kind of walked slowly through this process to kind of get to a place where you both feel comfortable kind of who's doing what.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing conversation as we grow, obviously. We still own our own businesses, but we just kind of took that collaborative advertising thing one step further. And we just have kind of really a rolling JV is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Do like a profit share back and forth. When he buys me a property, he gets a piece of that. When I fix up his property, I get a piece of that, and it balances out.
It's awesome. So how would you say, because you've had some different jobs since you've had a family and been married, how would you say that the HomeVestors business model for an individual benefits your family, benefits your roles as a dad, as a husband?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a HomeVestors specific thing so much as it is being a self-employed person that comes with, even when I was working in a corporate role, I was always very loosely overseen. So, I've never been paid to have my butt in a seat at a particular time or produce X number of widgets. It's always take something, build something, and deliver it, right? And so that's continued. It's just a slightly higher degree of pressure, being the business owner. The benefit is you can theoretically work when you want to work. The downside is you might be working at all times, right? You have to come up with your own boundaries and your own systems. Nobody's gonna ring the bell for the shift on your behalf. But again, the franchise has made that a lot easier because I've got lots of models to look at. I've got pieces that are outsourced by virtue of I paid for them in the system. And I've got the confidence that when I've got a low day, a low month, a low quarter, which happens, I can look around me and see it's balanced out by the fact that, hey, Ron or Dan or somebody else are doing the exact same stuff and they just had a smoking quarter and it's going to average out, right?
Right. Yeah, good. So this is a trickier question, so feel free to modify. To what extent are you comfortable sharing your business results? I mean, in terms of like number of deals or,
Yeah,
your profit, how your rental properties you've added, or how do you give someone who's listening a feel for, hey, this has turned out to be a pretty good business decision on my part
Yeah.
to do this?
Totally comfortable, but bad at it. So I'm good with numbers, but I'm bad at remembering numbers. To give you an example, I think 3 or 4 years into my marriage, my wife asked for her Christmas present that I finally memorized her phone number. And so I worked real hard at that, and I did that. 301-751. Can't tell you the rest.
No.
Yeah, but just to prove. So I'm just not good at remembering specific numbers. I've got all that stuff in spreadsheet, but in like general terms, I started in October of whatever year that was. I mentally and emotionally and financially burned the first 3 months. Like, this is just training ground, right? So that advertising is gone, that salary is gone. Like, I'm just in school. So for me, my HomeVestors career started January of that subsequent year. I think I only made like 40 or 50,000 when it was all said and done. And I'll circle back to that for a couple of reasons. But I was satisfied, not because that was a good amount of money, but because I was building. Like, I put a lot of deals in the pipeline that first year that then I got my pay the subsequent year, right? One thing I learned about myself too is after a while, I did the math, and my average dollar in to dollar out was a year. Some of that is just like my flaws in me. But other of it represents I'm really good at follow-up. I bought multiple deals after years after my initial connection with those folks. So I've got a good conversion rate, but also I like the bigger projects. So I was not expecting that. And it's come down since I've improved and gotten more efficient. The year, I think, what is it? I've only got 2 years since then. We've comfortably made 6 figures starting year 2. And then in year 3, we were able to start really putting away some rental properties as well. So we're making an ample income for our family. We're covering our bills, and we're socking away rentals, which I count as income, even though it's not captured, right? Like that rental equity that I put aside.
It's the wealth building aspect of what we do, right?
That's right. Yeah. So that's really what we're trying to do. I'm planning for next year, setting my advertising budget. It's like, how much do I need to make to cover my salary, all of our overhead, a comfortable margin, and then the rest is going, into long-term stuff. Keep that as a rental or whatever else. So,
at the sidelines, you've also done a couple Airbnbs or more?
Yeah, we are working on our 4th Airbnb right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is that a relatively new thing, or did you have one going last year or just this year?
My first one went live January of this year, but that was a big project. So that was, I probably own, I'd been working on that thing for a year beforehand, because we built an accessory unit. We did some subdivisions. It was a very involved project.
And you've been pretty happy with the results of that?
It's been stellar. Yeah. It's been amazing. Yeah. A handful of those and I could cover my salary.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. That's really great. Well, Gene, I'm curious to ask you this question. If you were to give advice to someone looking at HomeVestors, and you're going to be thoughtful about it and they're thoughtful about it, what advice would you give someone who's considering a HomeVestors franchise?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and you and I have talked about this, but what I would hit somebody hard with was making sure they had enough of a capital runway. I started with, I think it was like roughly 100,000 and change, which I just sold a rental property in order to do that. And coming from the not-for-profit world, I was like, I could basically retire. Like, I've never seen so much money in my life. Like who has $100,000 in the bank in my world,
Yeah.
And that ran out quick. that ran out really quick. I think there's a couple of great seminars. Like it's not a secret, but it's one of those things like you got to hit, at least for me, I had to hit my own head on that wall before I went, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. I just didn't have a grid for it. How quickly that cash can disappear. So I'd say, you've got to have at least 6 months. And I'd be nervous then. If I felt confident advising somebody to get into this, I'd say you need a year worth of runway through some combination of free cash, or you got other income coming in through a spouse, or, whatever kind of existing career. That'd be one, because you can't get away without. There's only so much you can hustle. You need cash. You need cash. That'd be the biggest piece of advice, and then the rest is probably just, it all probably applies to any business, right? Just a lot of determination, a lot of humility. Just a willingness to go after something for a while until you get it figured out, until you start seeing the returns come in.
What I discovered about you, because I've known you for a long time in the HomeVestors environment, was your willingness and ability to be teachable. You had a lot of ideas about what you wanted to do or what you thought you should do.
Yeah.
But when you heard information that was contrary to that, or maybe was an adjustment to the sale kind of thing, you were like, okay, yeah. And you were very eager to learn from other franchisees as well, not just your development agent. You were really interested in getting to know them and hearing how they accomplished whatever it was that they did. So I would say as well, learning from what I've seen you do, is you make quick course adjustments because you stay humble, but you're really hungry. You have one of the lowest, cost to buy ratios in the whole franchise, and you have on the whole ad council in Raleigh, you have for consecutive years. So that hustle, the follow up, the hunger to kind of get your next deal is there, but you're as well the humility to make course adjustments when you realize, okay, no, this is not where I need to do, how I need to focus. It's been really palpable. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I was very careful not to interview you too soon in your career in HomeVestors. I don't like when people are interviewed or talked to or do a video testimonial after 12 months. It's like, okay, we need some time to kind of, sort this out and make sure you really feel confident about what you've been doing. And you've been doing it long enough to where you definitely feel confident, and you've had a great track record. So we're going to wrap up this conversation, but anything else that just strikes you to say, hey, if someone really wants to hear my story, they really need to know this part?
Yeah, I don't want to say a lot of time, but because of that consistently low conversion record, and I can't, Eric handles most of that these days, so I can't entirely take credit for it, but I have a lot of people come up and ask me for advice on the buying process. And I think the biggest thing that I try to reassure folks is that if you go in there to serve that seller, that's enough. There's skill to be learned, lines, phrases, how to lead that conversation, how to convey what it is that you're doing. Like, there's real skill. But when I go on a buy appointment, I pray for the person first that I'm going to meet. And then my number one assessment afterwards, I would always stop. I'd write them a little, before I even drive away, or maybe I go around the corner and I park. I write them a little handwritten thank you note that's genuine, it's sincere. And I ask myself, did I leave that person better than I found them? And if I can answer yes to that, then I'm content. And then from there, I've got like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I really confused that issue. Like, next time I'll do that particular part better. But because of that, I mean, I can confidently look at my track record and say to others now, hey, if you just try to serve the people you're in front of, you will buy plenty of houses. You don't have to be salesy. You don't have to convince them that this is the right thing for them. You can be very open-handed and look at people, which I have multiple times, and go, I don't think I'm the right solution for you. Like, I don't recommend you sell to me.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. And it's not like a reverse judo move either. Like, if that's my genuine, if that's what I would say to my mother, my grandparent, I'd say, hey, if you're asking me honestly, I would say this is not the right play for you. I'm happy to buy your house, but for whatever, it just doesn't make sense to you. I don't think I'm your guy. And I've bought many of those houses because people come back and they say, no, for the following reasons, you are the right guy. I do want to sell my house at a discount. This is what's best for me. And I go into that with a clean conscience. And that was hard for me to believe that coming into the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent. Love it. That's super advice and super perspective, and certainly is, success leaves clues. And so clearly, I think you've let us in on a lot of your life clues there and kind of how you run your life and your business. And I think it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people to hear that. So thanks so much for spending this time with me today, Gene.
It's a joy, sir. I appreciate you.
All right. We're going to close it out.
Okay.